actually really, you guys are right, it's actually really important. It should be. Yeah, I wish we could get into this.
Well, it's just going to be the way it is. Great. I mean, that's great. Hello and welcome to DisruptEDtv, where our job is to present you with disruptive ideas, novel ideas, innovative ideas that can make your school a better school. And we have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Andrew Royce, whose company is called Voyce with a V. And it's a very special service that I don't know how to describe the system. I mean, we just saw it work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievably impressive. We live in a world where people are coming to us from just about every country. And we can't force everybody to speak English. We have to deal in a world where different people speak different languages. Voyce is a company that provides translation services. So, Andrew, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the company was started a couple years ago. I was volunteering with refugees in Montreal, Quebec.
Okay.
And these refugees were fleeing the 2011 civil war in Syria. And unfortunately, to get a full-time job in Canada, you have to speak not just English, but also French, just to get a basic job. So there's big challenges for immigrants who are coming here to learn the language proficiently very quickly. It takes them about 2 to 3 years. So in that 2 to 3 year time span, what's their solution for communicating for your healthcare, for your housing, for your education? So I came up with this concept of an on-demand translator, a real human translator who can help someone who's a migrant or asylum seeker or a refugee to get a translator whenever they need in any language. So I worked with a couple of my friends, my CTO, Dr. Lee, my other close friend, Alexandre Trudeau, who's from Canada, and we came up with this concept of voice, having a voice for someone who wants to come to the US or Canada or the UK and make a great life for themselves, and they just need a little bit of communication aid to get to that point where they're comfortable and successful. So we basically hired thousands of translators and interpreters in over 227 different languages. So anything from Igbo to Yoruba to Salvadorian Spanish to Somalian Arabic, to be on demand in call centers or at home, providing services to people who have limited English speaking capabilities, no matter what time of the day, whether it's Christmas, whether it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday, to help these people communicate with public institutions who are providing resources to them.
That's great. So we've got that's such a terrific idea.
Yeah.
We've got schools who are watching our program who every now and then by some mandate have to be able to communicate with the child who's just come to the school, who speaks, and you made a really good point. Spanish isn't just Spanish. There are different dialects of Spanish, and you can handle all those different dialects as well.
Exactly. I mean, I always joke that certain curse words in Spanish in Mexico are just normal words in Venezuelan Spanish. So there's huge different terminology in different dialects of Spanish. If you meet someone who's from Spain, they're much different than someone who's from Paraguay. So there's also Argentina.
That's
there's not just language, but also dialect and cultural understanding.
Right.
So there's different cultures in all these different Spanish-speaking countries, and culture makes a big difference in the type of behavior that you would that you would encounter when you're talking to a parent or a student who doesn't speak that language.
You want them to feel comfortable. That's the really important point. Is you got a student who's a little frightened because they're surrounded by people they don't understand.
Right.
They need to communicate with these people. It's intimidating to be in a situation like that. If they can hear a friendly voice that speaks their version of their language, they can immediately relax, loosen up, maybe open up in ways they wouldn't otherwise.
Exactly.
And if I can get that on demand whenever I want it, 24 hours a day, without having to hire an interpreter and keep them on staff, it would be more than one interpreter because we're talking about multiple dialects of the same language in some cases.
Yeah.
This sounds very expensive, is it?
No. So the beauty of this is it's super affordable. It's about 99 cents a minute for the service in any of 227 languages. Outside of spoken languages, we also provide sign language services.
Okay.
So for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, we provide 24/7 sign language services into English and sign language services into Spanish for students who are Spanish and deaf.
And Spanish and deaf. Wow,
Exactly.
that's very impressive.
So it's really affordable. The interpreters and translators answer within seconds. It's a really beautiful user experience, very simple to operate.
I want to make a point too. When we first saw that you were scheduled to come on the program, my first misconception was that we were talking about technology and that technology was going to solve this problem. And I have an iPhone. I spend a fair amount of time screaming at Siri because even in English, a computer doesn't really necessarily understand you most of the time. We're talking about real people who understand both languages and can relate to the people that are trying to communicate in ways that actually facilitate that communication.
Exactly. And these are not just real translators or real people. These are professional, highly vetted translators that are coached and taught how to communicate to young students or a woman who's in a healthcare facility or someone who's in court. These are interpreters and translators who are often trained or even certified by national organizations.
So the translation is going to come out correctly.
Yes, it's going to come out correctly.
Right.
You know, we're our audience is education, but but you know, we're talking about professionally correctly. So I mean, if I want to communicate with somebody on medical matters, I would like an interpreter who understands not only how to interpret the two languages, but understands the professional jargon that we're using in that language, and you offer that.
Exactly. We have specific translators and interpreters who are dedicated to providing services for different industries or different types of environments. So when we provide a service for a student in a school who's deaf, we have sign language interpreters who all they do is just provide sign language services for deaf students. Or our Spanish interpreter just focuses on Spanish, Mexican Spanish in school systems, because there's things that they learn to kind of expect and are trained to sort of adapt to these sort of environments. And there's different cultural cues that a Spanish interpreter who's trained in education might understand better than someone who's trained in diplomatic interpretation.
Just the words they use.
Exactly.
That's communication,
Absolutely.
not just language translation.
Right.
It's actual person-to-person communication. And you mentioned you worked with refugees, and I know we have an influx of a population from the Middle East, people who speak Arabic.
Yep.
Different dialects of Arabic, I guess you can handle that.
Anything from Moroccan Arabic, Lebanese Arabic, Egyptian Arabic, Syrian Arabic. We handle the different dialects of Arabic. Again, there's similar dialects, and Arabic people usually tell you that they understand each other, but it's not the same. It's the different sort of language structures. So
and that's important, and that's something you can cover.
Exactly.
I think that's so important.
Exactly.
In English, we're going to take our first break.
In English, we have to take our first break, and it's in English. But when we come back, we're actually going to show how it works.
Absolutely. Be right
Absolutely.
back.
Andrew, a pleasure. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to DisruptEDtv. My name is Al Cini.
I'm Joe Osamendi.
And our guest today is Andrew Royce, who's going to show us now how his system works. And I was amazed. You showed us a little bit before the program on how easy it is. And so from the beginning, go ahead and give us an example.
Take us through.
Yeah.
So here's the app, the Voice app.
Okay.
I'm going to start my request. And you hear some of these birds chirping. And it's usually about 10 seconds for an interpreter to come on. And that's the sound of the interpreter coming on.
Okay.
There you go.
This is Rigo. I'm your Spanish interpreter. How may I help you, sir?
Hi, interpreter. I have a student here who doesn't understand English. I want to ask the student, did you understand the third part of our lesson today, discussing quadratic equations?
¿Usted entiende la tercera parte de nuestra clase hoy con relación a las ecuaciones?
Do you have any questions of me? Or is there anything I need to explain better for you?
¿Usted tiene alguna pregunta para mí o necesito explicarle mejor?
Did you want me to speak to your parents as well to discuss your progress in our class?
¿Desea usted que hable con sus padres para analizar su progreso en las clases?
Thank you so much, interpreter.
Thank you, sir.
And then you just hang up, say I'm done, and you can even rate the interpreter, similar to Uber. I thought he was really good, right?
No, I could
5 stars for him, and that's it.
Well,
You mentioned,
go ahead. No.
You mentioned that he came on in like 10 seconds. Is that for all languages? It's 227 languages.
Yes.
Is that around the same time? 10 seconds?
So when we work with school systems, we guarantee response time underneath 60 seconds.
Okay.
And that's just to make sure that, for those not odd languages, but languages of lower diffusion,
Right.
like an Igbo or like a Yoruba or Lingala,
Okay.
that we're still covering that 60-second standard that we set.
Great.
But for an interpreter like Spanish, in that case, I think that was about 8 seconds,
Right, it was
10
about-
seconds.
Very impressive.
So we like to, guarantee 60, but if they come on an 8, then
Oh,
it's all better for everybody involved.
You brought up, for me, what could be a potentially very interesting idea for a school. You said to the interpreter, would you like me to meet with your parents about your lesson today? I'm sure that a lot of schools in a lot of neighborhoods, with ethnically diverse populations, would be interested in these translation services for back to school night or PTA meetings.
Yes, for sure. And there's been a lot of academic research out there. One is from Joyce Epstein, who's a researcher from Johns Hopkins University. And she basically wrote that when parents are more involved in their students' education, especially parents who are limited English-speaking people, those students are performing better in reading. They're performing better in math and their outcomes. So when you have parents who are really part of the process, the educational process, really speaking to their teachers about the report card, about their enrollment, about their attendance, their classroom behavior, the student is performing better. And that's our end goal, is we want to help people and help students perform better in school and perform better in life. And fortunately, there's a lot of limited English-speaking people in the U.S. who are below the poverty line and aren't able to achieve the American dream. And these type of services, they're not going to replace learning English, but they're going to serve as a bridge between.
Exactly.
That just makes so much sense. It's such a logical solution to what I'm sure is a very large problem. And,
Right. Sure. And it's inexpensive. I think it's impressive that it's affordable.
Yeah.
It's really affordable.
It's
You'd
the kind
think
of thing that a school could fit within.
if somebody had to hire an interpreter, it could be hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, I mean,
thousands.
interpreters can charge hundreds of dollars a day,
Right.
and they're not always used all the time. This is a service where when you need it, you hit Spanish, you hit Farsi, you hit Urdu, and then boom, the interpreter shows up. When you don't need it, you don't use it, and you don't pay for the service. So it's by the minute. And the way we think of Voice is similar to Uber. When you need Uber, you use it. It's a relatively affordable.
Where you want to go, and you don't need it anymore, and you're out. And that's
Exactly.
I think that's terrific.
And it's a huge problem in education. People don't realize around 16% of students in America have one parent at home who does not understand English, so is limited English speaking. There's about 3.5 million children in the U.S. who have limited English speaking capabilities. So, and also sign language. There's millions of people in the U.S. And abroad who are not able to hear or are deaf. So it is a big problem, and communication is usually the first step to being able to achieve the outcomes that you want in your education and economically as well. So this is, again, a very, very important service to a huge problem that we face in our school systems.
Terrific way to integrate a school into the community and to integrate the parents into the school, which is, I think, a big part of it, because I can't imagine how many parents are left out of the process of the education of their children because they're immigrants.
Yeah.
And they just don't know the language.
And they want to be
Right.
participating, but they just don't understand.
They just don't understand.
Both linguistically, but also culturally, understanding
Right.
the culture. And I think these interpreters are trained for education, so they understand the culture of a classroom and can really bridge that gap between the parent, the student, and the teacher and principal.
That's so important because you do get an exact interpretation based on the needs.
Yeah, that's really
real
critical. And any school that offers this as a service has a kind of a competitive advantage. I mean, you hate to say that when it comes to schools, but
Right.
it's something that a school could uniquely offer as a program that differentiates them from other schools.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
If I'm a Spanish-speaking parent and I know, one school offers Voice versus another, I'm going to send my kid to the school that offers the
where I
best,
know that I can-
the best tools for my kid and for me to feel
Absolutely.
comfortable and
that I can
successful.
feel like I'm a part of it. I get included in it and not left out of it. Now, the technical infrastructure that the school has to have in order to use the service. You mentioned that you're offering the service mostly through institutions, organizations now, because they have Wi-Fi. The reliability of the network is kind of critical.
Yeah, so I mean, any iPad has LTE, any phone, this works on iPhones, Android phones, this works on any laptop or computer that has access to Wi-Fi, and also works on a traditional telephone line.
Great.
So if you're a school that has no Wi-Fi, no laptops, no computers, no iPads, which in this day and age is very rare, you can still use a traditional telephone and get our voice interpreters instantly. So
Okay.
it's a very flexible solution. And most schools do have LTE or do have good broadband. So the service works very well in those sorts of environments.
So in a university context, if I'm working with a colleague in Germany or I'm working with a colleague in Sri Lanka, I can arrange a voice communication, Skype call or a voice-to-voice call with them so that we can work on a project together in our native languages.
Exactly.
Without missing any of
Yeah, and I faced that problem when I was doing research in university in my younger days. I was doing research in German, and I didn't understand any German. And I wish at that point I had Voice to help me communicate with German colleagues. And through the app, you can conference multiple parties in, not just through telephone, but multiple parties through video. So you could have a 3-way or a 4-way conversation on this tablet with all the video capabilities.
So I can put a conference call together that has that interpretation kind of built into it. That's
exactly.
very powerful.
And you can even bring on multiple interpreters. So if you have one German, one Arabic in the same conversation, so everybody understands, which is great for conference calls.
Oh, terrific. We need to take a break.
Exactly.
This is a great subject.
Absolutely.
And we'll be back after this break to talk some more with Andrew about how this all works and where it's going.
Right back, Andrew.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to DisruptEDtv. My name is Al Cini.
Joe Osamendi.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thank
It's
you.
good to see you. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure.
And our guest today is Andrew Royce, who just demoed his system, and it brought back a kind of a dark memory for me. My background, as it turns out, is technology, and I can't tell you how many times I've been embarrassed by a demo that I've shown somebody because it didn't work the way I expected, even after I'd rehearsed it like 30 times. And what we just did live on the air in the last segment, without any rehearsals, just worked. That whole idea of being able to translate languages without having to think about it, that's so powerful.
Yeah, I think it's super important in education is maximizing time and being efficient.
Right.
Sometimes you only have 40, 50-minute sessions with students. So I think the service, the interpreter answered in about 10 seconds. They're proficient. They're trained for these environments. There's no sort of hiccups or technology not working as long as there's good Wi-Fi or the phone service is working.
Or just think of the nurse. If a student has a problem and can't speak English,
actually, that's a really good application of it, because in the nurse's office, you're not going to get multilingual nurses in the nurse's office, and
so this is save a life or take care of somebody the way you take care of.
I mean, there's so many applications.
Yeah, I think for a nurse, instructing the student, after he or she's leaving the office. How do you take care of the cut on your elbow, or you have the strep throat? So I think it's super important for nurses, for teachers, for teacher aides to be able to communicate. For things, communication is extremely important.
And not just super important, but also legally required. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So the Department of Education, as well as the Department of Justice, recommends and mandates that parents receive language access when those parents are identified as not being able to understand English. And they actually have recommendations that there's methods to recognize when the parent doesn't understand the language. So they really put an emphasis on this in the school systems. And it's not like schools aren't complying or aren't doing something to translate a report card or translate an enrollment certificate, but they're not doing it in a way that's most affordable, most effective, and good for all parties involved. And Voice is that solution.
That really is.
That separates from the sort of the traditional methods of finding the local interpreter in the area who understands Portuguese. And sometimes schools will use other teachers or other nurses who speak Spanish. But just because they speak a little Spanish or they come from that country doesn't mean they're professional interpreters for educational settings.
Sure.
No, somebody from Barcelona isn't going to be able to talk to somebody from Buenos Aires, for instance.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So we're a professional service that's really dedicated to students and to education, which is a much better alternative than using just someone who speaks Spanish.
Absolutely.
Or not using anyone at all.
Now, how long have you been doing this?
I started this project in April of 2016. I work 7 days a week, so I've dedicated my life to making sure that we have these great services for people who are in need. And as I mentioned, I started this project because I was helping refugees, and it was just volunteering. and it became into a business, and a really fast-growing business. We work on anywhere from Asia to the United Kingdom, Germany, U.S., Canada, Mexico. We have a global footprint, and we have hundreds of thousands of users of this service.
Wow,
so it's grown very, very quickly in a short period of time, and that's just because it's a good technology, it's a good service. The interpreters are highly vetted, and it's super affordable.
Yeah, you mentioned too before the program that you were a student and your principal was our educational consultant, Richard Allen.
Mr. Allen, yes, he's one of the best educators I've had my entire life. And when I was applying for college, he says, Andrew, you should apply for Columbia, you should apply for Dartmouth. And I had never thought about applying to Ivy League schools. I never thought that I was someone who could get into those schools. And to this day, I'm thankful for him encouraging me, and I got into those schools. And
where'd you go?
I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill on a full scholarship, and I also attended McGill University in Montreal on a fellowship there, and then I got my master's at Imperial College in London.
Wow.
So I had a really strong educational background, and a lot of that can be attributed to the incredible amount of effort and work Mr. Allen put into.
His brand is excellence, no excuses, and it certainly took in your case. I think that's great.
Yeah, and he just believed in me, and that's super important.
That's so important. Well, we have educators and school administrators out there. They need to hear that. Well, I'm sure they experience that every day. I mean, this is something that schools are probably not recognized enough for. And I think that's really critical. Where do you see all this headed? How is this going to evolve?
I mean, we really feel that we can be the global leader in languages for anyone who's, we serve refugees and migrants who are entering Germany into healthcare for healthcare purposes. We serve the police force in the UK. So any sort of industry sector which is specialized, like education, like criminal justice, prisons, or police, or healthcare, we want to be that bridge between someone who doesn't understand the language and someone who's providing services. So our goal is to cover all the languages, whether it's Chinese into Arabic, Chinese into French, or English, Spanish into Portuguese. So covering all those different language combinations and working in as many countries as we possibly can.
And speaking you have specialists too. It's so important.
Yeah.
So important when you talk about health or education or anything. You have specialists in that thing, not a broad interpretation, but a specific.
Or a
interpretation.
machine that just has a basic understanding of the translation.
One of our program's producers, Chris Salico, we were talking to him before the program, and he said it would be great if people could, from anywhere in the world, could take an English language online course. One of the impediments to that, obviously, is language, but you solve that problem. You can take the course through Voice, and that addresses and solves that problem.
And it's also very affordable. So even though you're getting a great educational instruction in your own native language, you're not paying thousands of dollars for the service. So being accessible and affordable is important to our mission, which is to help people.
And people use credit cards as well as payment?
Yeah, you can pay by credit card. The institutions just have an access code, so the institution will type the access code in, and they pick the language, and then ta-da.
So you can make a relationship with a school or a school district and provide services for any of the schools in the district, or just one school, if it makes sense.
Yeah. So identifying which schools have the greatest need is the best way to start, and then expanding into as many schools that are eligible for this type of service.
That might need that. That's great. That's terrific.
You got a fantastic story to tell.
It is. It's great.
Absolutely.
We're so glad to have you on the program. And we're coming up on that part of the program where you get to tell everybody how to reach you.
Sure.
So if you look straight into your camera and just say why they should call you and how to get a hold of you, that'd be great.
So my name is Andrew Royce. I'm the CEO of Voyce, a global language service provider. Our app is Voyce. You can find it on the iTunes Store, Android Store. You can go to our website, which is Voyce, VOYCE, global.com. You can look me up, Andrew Royce. My Instagram is Andrew_ROYCE. My telephone number is 201-330-7720. Feel free to call anytime and get in touch with us.
Andrew, thank you so much for appearing on DisruptEDtv. You've been such a great guest.
You had a great message, and you have a great product.
A great product. It's a great service. It's really needed too. That's wonderful. My name is Al Cini.
I'm still Joe Osamendi.
We want to thank all of you for tuning in today. We hope you got a lot. Well, we hope you got as much out of this program as we did. There's so many possibilities here, and hope you made good notes and get a hold of Andrew. And we'll see you again on another DisruptEDtv.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Terrific.